Today is Remembrance Sunday, when together the country honours those who gave their lives in conflicts past and present. Remembrance is about keeping memories alive so that we don't forget. I'm at RAF Bryce Norton, where British troops embark for military operations. It's also where the fallen are brought home. I meet those who are tasked with the special ceremony of repatriation.
It's the military community saying goodbye to one of its comrades and wanting to do it with the utmost respect and real care and tenderness.
And Josie talks to a mother whose son died in the line of duty.
We had watched repatriations on television, but when you watch them, you hope and pray that that's going to be a journey that you never have to take.
A former British soldier explains how his faith helped him overcome devastating injuries in Afghanistan. And we hear from a 97-year-old veteran of the Arctic convoys who battled extreme weather and enemy fire during the Second World War.
The roughest seas you can imagine. Cold, bitterly cold. It was unbelievable.
We also remember those who gave their lives in our music today. We've got performances from Russell Watson and Catherine Jenkins, and we begin with a hymn that's synonymous with remembrance services. The tune was composed by Gustav Holst, the words by Sir Cecil Spring Rice, as he reflected on the scale of the loss of life during the First World War. Since 2011, RAF Bryce Norton in Oxfordshire has had the responsibility of bringing home those who've died on duty in a ceremony of repatriation. The aircraft that carries the fallen home is the C-17, operated by No. 99 Squadron.
Out there on the pan is where the C-17s will bring back the coffins of those who've died, and this is the centre where the families will meet together to welcome their loved one home.
The senior padre, Reverend Dr. Giles Legood, knows why these ceremonies mean so much.
There's a huge amount of effort goes into it. It's the military community saying goodbye to one of its comrades and wanting to do it with the utmost respect and real care and tenderness.
That moment when the coffin comes out must be incredibly precious.
The reality of it really comes home, but this is the first time they've actually had eyes on the most precious thing in the world to them, which is now being taken away, and you can imagine that the atmosphere is extraordinarily charged. I remember being at a repatriation and we were lined up and welcoming our fallen comrade home, and one of the children shouted out, "I want my daddy," and all of us, grown men and women, I think all of us went weak at the knees at that point when we realised just the importance of what we were doing here. We must do it at the very highest level to the best we can because we're doing a service to this family.
Matt, what does it mean to you to be part of this ceremony, and what's your role?
So it's obviously an immensely humbling duty. It's one of the duties which nobody wants to be a part of, but is very proud when they get the opportunity to. It comes with a lot of gravitas, as an occasion such as this should.
It is incredibly emotional. You are, on the one hand, wanting to do your job to the best, but you are also absolutely aware of the fact that that is somebody's loved one that you're bringing back. And you sometimes can't put into words how much that means to individuals, and you wanting to play a part in that role.
Well, what can you say to people here as they wait for their loved ones?
Well, simply there are no simple answers. Very often it's just sitting in silence with them, holding their hand if that's appropriate, crying. They just like to have somebody alongside them, perhaps who wears the same uniform as their family member, and offer some hope maybe in their very, very darkest moments.
Remembrance Sunday is of special significance for the loved ones of those who've given their lives in the service of the country. Josie went to see Jackie Holloway to talk about her son, Richard.
He was desperate to join Cubs and was very frustrated that he wasn't allowed to join before he was 8. He was always the first to volunteer for any activities. He couldn't wait to go off to camps.
Cool. Today I am going to make the wheelie up the century and then fly down to a 360 skid and then wheelie all the way back up the hill.
As his knowledge grew, he wanted to experience more and more.
Can you tell me about the day that Richard said to you, Mum, I'm going to Afghanistan, and your feelings about it?
We knew that once he was in the army, the day would come when he would go to Afghanistan, and it meant an enormous amount to him. We were very proud of the job he was doing, and happily that first tour that he did, all was well. The second time he went was different. After he'd gone, I felt unsettled, but I tried not to let that get me down. And then, of course, it was only a few weeks later when we had the news.
Captain Richard Holloway of the Royal Engineers was tragically killed after being engaged by enemy fire in Afghanistan on the 23rd of December.
We had watched repatriations on television, but when you watch them, you hope and pray that that's going to be a journey that you never have to take. It was. I hope Richard would have been proud of us.
I know that that day must have been beyond horrific when you got the news. What reserves of strength did you draw on?
I have a faith. I can't sit here now and say that I turned to God. The first Mother's Day after Richard was killed, and the Padre sent me a card. And it says, "You don't know how strong you are until strength is the only option." I found strength through other people, and I believe that that's how God works.
Were you angry?
I've never felt angry. I've never felt bitter. I simply feel a very, very deep sadness. I remember maybe 2 months or so after the event, and a friend said to me, had I forgiven him? And I said, forgiven who? And she said, well, God. Have you forgiven God for taking Richard? And I said, well, I never blamed him. The community here more or less closed ranks round us when he was killed. His name needs to be there. A sermon recently in our local church was on the theme of thankfulness. We have many, many things to be thankful for, despite losing Richard. But on his gravestone, we included the words, "Say not in grief he is no more, but live in thankfulness that he was."